Today, we're diving into a concept from Eastern philosophy that, honestly, I think is one of the most powerful psychological tools out there for the world we live in. It's called Sunyata. Now, it's often translated as emptiness, which I know can sound kind of bleak, but we're going to find out how it can actually unlock this deep sense of freedom and connection, especially in a world that so often makes us feel isolated and totally overwhelmed. So let's just jump right in.
All right, let's kick things off with a question that might feel a little, well, weird. And I want you to really pause on this one. Don't just gloss over it. Does the person you think you are, that solid, continuous you who feels like the main character of your life's movie, does that person really exist in the way you think they do? It's a huge question, I know. It can feel like the ground is kind of shifting under your feet, and our gut reaction is, of course I exist. What are you talking about? I'm right here. But what if that powerful feeling of being this separate, independent self is less of a permanent thing and more of an incredibly convincing story? It's a useful story, don't get me wrong. It helps us get through the day. But it's a story. And here's the kicker. What if clinging to that story, defending it 24/7, is the very thing causing so much of our stress, our anxiety, and our burnout? That's the huge shift in perspective we're going to explore.
And this leads us right to, well, right now. We're living in this era that just worships the self-made individual, you know? The whole digital economy of 2026, it basically requires us to be in the business of being me. We're all supposed to be the CEO of our own personal brand. We've got to curate the perfect feed, build the network, project constant success, and most importantly, seem totally self-reliant. And let's be honest, it is absolutely exhausting. This constant pressure to build, polish, and defend this isolated identity, it's a huge reason we're also burned out. We feel like we have to carry the entire weight of our life, all the wins, all the losses, completely on our own shoulders. And this is where Sunyata comes in, with a completely different way of seeing things. It is so important we get this definition right. When we hear the word emptiness, we tend to think of a cold, empty void, nothingness. But that is a total misunderstanding of the idea. Sunyata doesn't mean things don't exist. Of course they do. It means they don't exist independently. The core idea is that nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, exists all by itself in a vacuum. Everything comes into being because of its relationship to everything else. You know the classic analogy? It's perfect. Think of a wave in the ocean. The wave is real, right? It has a shape, a beginning, an end. But is it separate from the ocean? No way. It's made of the ocean. It's empty of being some separate, standalone thing, but it's completely full of ocean. And in that exact same way, the idea is that we are empty of a separate self, but we are completely full of the entire universe.
So let's link that idea right back to burnout. This whole culture of the personal brand tells us to do the exact opposite of what reality is. It says, create a fixed, solid you, a perfect logo for your life, a consistent story. And then you have to spend all your energy defending that thing you just built. You got to protect it from critics, hide its flaws, and fight against any change that doesn't fit the brand. It's the perfect recipe for chronic anxiety. And why? Because you're trying to protect something that isn't even real to begin with. You're basically trying to freeze a single wave and pretend it's not part of a huge moving ocean. That constant effort, it's a psychological battle you just can't win.
Let's make this super practical. Right now, wherever you are, just pause and look around the room. Pick anything, your phone, a lamp, even a simple pencil. Now try to find any part of it that exists completely by itself, with zero outside help. Let's take that pencil. Is it just a pencil? Or is it also the tree that was cut down for the wood? And that tree is also the sunlight that traveled 93 million miles to feed it, the rain that fell, the nutrients in the soil. And the pencil is also the graphite that was mined from the earth and the people who mined it. It's the rubber for the eraser, which came from a tree on the other side of the planet. It's the person who designed its shape, the factory workers who put it together, the whole complex global economy that let it be made and sold and end up in your hand. The second you really look, you see the pencil isn't some solid thing in the world. It's a place where the entire universe is meeting for a moment. It has no independent existence. And spoiler alert, neither do we.
Okay, so we've got the basic idea down. Now let's make it even more real. We're going to take something incredibly normal, something millions of us do every single day without thinking twice, and we're going to see how it basically holds the secrets of the entire cosmos. Let's break down the simple act of drinking a morning cup of coffee. You know, what's so wild about this is how much it simplifies what is a nearly infinite web of connections. Let's really slow down and follow these threads. Just imagine the sunlight. It travels across empty space to land on a coffee plant, maybe way up in the mountains of Colombia. That plant is pulling nutrients from soil that took thousands of years to form. Now picture a farmer, their hands tending to that plant, using knowledge that's been passed down for generations.
Those beans then get put on a truck, which connects to a massive container ship, part of this mind-boggling global network, a whole dance of logistics and trade and tech. The beans finally get to a roaster who uses their own special craft, this art of heat and time to bring out all the flavors. And finally, a barista grinds those beans, uses heated water that came through your local power grid, and makes your cup. I mean, it just shows it so clearly. The simple cup of coffee is a meeting point of astrophysics, geology, human history, and global economics.
And this is the massive psychological shift. Our normal automatic thought is, I am drinking this coffee. Simple. Subject I, acting on an object, coffee. It's just a transaction. But when you look at it through the lens of Sunyata, the reality is so much bigger, so much more amazing. The thought changes to, the entire planet is collaborating so this moment can happen. The I is no longer some separate consumer, I'm just a participant in this enormous process. The coffee isn't just a product, it's a crossroads of countless relationships. Honestly, when I started trying to see it this way, my morning coffee went from just a routine to a ritual. It became a moment of pure awe. You realize you were literally tasting the work of thousands of people and the energy of a star.
Okay, so we've taken apart an object out there, the coffee cup, and found the whole universe inside it. Now, it's time to turn that same powerful microscope inward. We're going to apply the exact same logic to our own sense of self. It's time to meet and then gently dismantle your inner CEO. What is so incredible is that this ancient philosophical idea is now being mirrored by modern neuroscience. Scientists have found what they call the interpreter function of the brain, mostly in the left hemisphere. And its job is to take this constant, chaotic flood of information, sights, sounds, feelings, bodily sensations, our actions, and spin it all into a single, neat story. And who's the main character of that story? Me. This creates that really strong feeling of a unified boss, a CEO sitting in the corner office of our brain, calling all the shots. And hey, it's a brilliant evolutionary trick. This CEO self lets us plan, have social lives, and just make sense of a crazy world. But here's the catch. When neuroscientists go looking for the CEO in the actual brain, they can't find it. There's no single spot. What they find instead is a decentralized network of different processes all working together. The CEO is a fantastic story the brain tells itself to make its own job simpler. And this leads us straight to our day-to-day suffering. When we mistake this useful story for who we actually are, deep down we feel like we have to protect it no matter what. This creates a state you could call protective anxiety. If your whole identity is wrapped up in I am a creative person, then you live with this constant, low-level fear of having a boring thought. If your brand is I am a strong leader, every little stumble feels like an existential threat. Every conversation becomes a performance, a negotiation to keep the story of me alive. We're constantly patrolling the borders of this identity we've built, and it is just a deeply anxious and exhausting way to live.
The freedom, that deep, you can finally exhale kind of freedom. It comes when we start to see ourselves not as a static thing, a noun, but as a dynamic process, a verb. You are not a fixed thing, you are an unfolding process. And when you really start to feel that, the need to be defensive just softens. You can make a mistake and it doesn't shatter who you are, it's just more information for the process of learning. You can change your mind about something big and it's not a sign you're weak, it's proof that you're growing. Now this isn't always easy. Letting go of that CEO can feel terrifying, like you're losing control. But the relief that comes from putting down that heavy shield of a fixed identity, a shield you might not have even known you were carrying, is just immense.
So, what does this freedom actually feel like in the real world, in our everyday lives? Let's get out of the theory and into the actual experience. This is where we see how this change in perspective can transform some of our most common frustrations into moments of connection we never expected.
Okay, let's take something universally maddening, being stuck in a traffic jam. The story our solo self tells is automatic, right? It's, I am trapped. These other people, these other cars are obstacles. They are in my way, stopping me from getting where I need to go. And that story instantly creates anger, isolation, a feeling of being a victim. Now, let's try on the Sunyata lens. The interconnected view might be something like this. You look around and you see hundreds of other people. Each of them is in their own little bubble, with their own destination, their own life, their own worries. You aren't trapped by them, you are participating with them in a huge collective movement. The whole system is clogged, and you are all a part of that system. And the feeling can shift from personal anger to this kind of impersonal shared experience. The frustration might not just vanish, but that sharp personal sting of it dissolves into something way more manageable.
This is why a much better word for sunyata, at least in a psychological way, might be spaciousness or openness. When you aren't gripping so tightly to a fixed identity, you suddenly have room to move. You have the freedom to change, to evolve. And this is so powerful when it comes to personal growth and healing from our past. If you believe you are your past trauma, or you are your biggest failure, well, then you're stuck. But if you see that you from the past as just one version, one chapter in an ongoing story, you create the space to write a new one. You can let go of old identities that just don't fit anymore, without that terrifying feeling that you're losing yourself, because you realize there isn't a static core self to lose in the first place. There's only this open, creative process of becoming.
And, maybe the most profound result of seeing the world this way is an ethical one. This understanding naturally, almost automatically leads to what you could call radical compassion. If you truly get, on a gut level, that we're not separate islands, but are all nodes in a single massive web of life, then harming another person becomes as crazy and self-defeating as your left hand deciding to attack your right hand. You're part of the same body. Compassion stops being some high-minded moral goal you're supposed to try for. It just becomes the most practical, logical response to the way things actually are. Other people aren't competitors to beat or threats to manage anymore. They're fellow participants in the same complex, beautiful, and sometimes messy dance.
So this all sounds great in theory, but the big question is always, how do we actually bring this into our real, messy, stressful lives? That brings us to our final section, living in open connection. This is about a simple, practical way to take this idea off the page and put it to work when you need it most.
This is not something you need to go on a silent retreat for. You can do this in 60 seconds, right in the middle of a stressful moment. Let's walk through it. Imagine you get a really blunt, critical email from your boss. The solo self story just kicks right in. I'm being attacked, my work is being questioned, it's me versus them. You feel that jolt of anxiety or maybe anger. Here's what you do. Step 1. Just pause. Before you fire back a defensive email, just stop. Take one deep breath. That's it. You've just hit the brakes on that autopilot reaction. Step 2. Acknowledge the feeling. Don't judge it. Just name it in your head. Okay, that's anxiety in my chest. I'm feeling defensive. Just naming it creates a tiny bit of space. Step 3, and this is the key move. Trace one invisible thread. Look for one point of connection. In this case, maybe you trace the thread of the project you're both working on. You both want it to go well. Or maybe you trace the thread of the pressure your boss is probably under from their boss, which might be why the email sounded so harsh. Just find any single strand that connects you in a shared situation. Step 4. Notice the shift. Just observe what happens in your body, in your mind. The shift from, my boss is attacking me to, we're two people under pressure trying to get this done, might be really subtle, but you might feel your shoulders drop just a little. The story changes, and that's the whole practice.
At the end of the day, this whole practice is about a fundamental change in how you see yourself. It's a journey from feeling like a lonely, isolated ego that has to constantly defend itself from the world, to realizing you are a vibrant, essential, and deeply connected part of the grand web of life. It's not that problems magically disappear. Traffic jams are still going to happen, critical emails will still show up in your inbox, but it changes the one who is experiencing them. You're no longer this fragile, fixed thing that can be broken. You are a dynamic process, as resilient and as connected as life itself.
And so we're going to end with a little call to action. Don't let this just be some interesting idea you heard. Let's make it real. For the rest of today, what is one invisible connection you can actively choose to notice? Maybe it's the huge network of people who brought the food you're eating to your plate. Maybe it's the shared history baked into the very language you're thinking with right now. Or maybe it's just the shared air you're breathing with everyone around you. Find one thread and, just for a moment, follow it. That small, conscious shift in how you see things, that's the first step on the path toward a more spacious, more connected, and truly freer way of living. What's yours going to be?